Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Yeh, and today I am zooming in from Boulder, Colorado, which sits on the unceded traditional territory of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations. I see that at least a few of you were just at the very inspiring and informative plenary panel on climate justice that we just had with Professors Kyle White, Tracy Osborne, and Michael Mendez. And now I'd like to welcome everyone to the special keynote for the climate justice theme by Winona LaDuke. It's truly an honor and privilege that Winona accepted our invitation to deliver this address. She really needs no introduction, but I will attempt to say a few words nonetheless. So Winona LaDuke is a Native American activist, economist, and author of many books and articles. She's devoted her life to advocating for Indigenous control of homelands, natural resources, and cultural practices. In 1989, she founded the White Earth Land Recovery Project and served as its executive director for the next 25 years. The project seeks to facilitate the recovery of the original land base of the White Earth Indian Reservation while restoring and maintaining traditional practices of sound land stewardship, language fluency, community development, and spiritual and cultural heritage. Its initiatives include renewable energy efforts and indigenous farming and local food systems. They've used land they buy to generate wind energy. They've helped to protect the local wild rice crop from patenting and genetic engineering, and have encouraged the consumption of traditional foods to combat rising rates of type 2 diabetes. In 1993, Winona LaDuke also co-founded Honor the Earth, an advocacy and fundraising group that works on behalf of Native environmental organizations. Honor the Earth has granted over $2 million to more than 200 Native American communities since its founding. Winona has received many honors for her work. For example, in 1994, Time magazine named her one of the 50 leaders for the future. In 1998, Ms. Magazine named her one of their Women of the Year. And in 2017, she received the University of California's Alice and Clifford Spenlow Prize in Social Justice, Diplomacy, and Tolerance. She was a long-time leader in the successful fight against Enbridge's Sandpiper pipeline in Minnesota, which was withdrawn in 2016. The same year, she was also very involved in supporting protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline in order to protect water access and indigenous lands in North Dakota. And last year, in 2021, she was at the front lines protesting against Enbridge's Line 3. She combines economic and environmental approaches in her efforts to create a thriving and sustainable community for her own White Earth Reservation and indigenous populations across the country. Her latest book is entitled "To Be a Water Protector: The Rise of the Wendigo Slayers." Her talk tonight is entitled "Water Protectors and the Rights of Wild Rice: Traditional Knowledge in the Face of Climate Change." So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Winona.
Thank you very much for the honor being here with you tonight. I was really excited to get this invitation. I'm sorry we can't all be in person, but maybe I get to meet all you cool geographers one day. I'm going to talk about Indigenous knowledge in land and wild rice and such things. That is right. But I just want to say I'm honored to be here with you. I'm Bear Clan, and I'm here Gawababani Kagish Kaniganing on the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota. So as I reflected on talking to you, I wanted to talk first about a couple of constructs. First, Indaking Aman, or Aking. Aking is the Anishinaaabe word for land. Aking, doesn't mean private property. It means the land to which the people belong. That's a totally different worldview than private property. And if I want to say Ind Aking Amin, that means the very land to which I belong, the very land to which we belong. And so that's like even more close to this, your homeland. And then if you think about this, the word Akwenzi means old man. And what that really means in Anishinaaabe in our language, which is the language of my territory, is from the land. Because in fact, it is true that here, this land here, Oma King, this land is like our DNA. We are from this land. This is the place that we are from. So I'm going to talk about that kind of a construct, which is certainly a little bit different than probably the construct that you have in your in a lot of geography, but geography is so political and social, and a worldview is different. So let me just try to show some pictures of my fabulous territory and what we are talking about here. Now, could you see that photo? Okay, I think you can. Huh? I'm going to go with yes, unless Emily
Yes.
says no.
Yes,
Thank you, Emily. Okay, this is Turtle Island. Now, you wouldn't do a map of North America like this, but the Anishinaabe would. This is an Anishinaabe map. Actually, this is a Six Nations guy map of Turtle Island, but we have this story about how our Mother Earth here in North America is really the back of a turtle, and this muskrat is who save us. And let me see how to make my next one go. Excuse me. Let's see. Here we go. Here is another map of, you could kind of see the turtle in the North American geography map. I don't know what this is, like a different kind of a map, but I just want to say that our thinking is a little bit about this. This is where we are, North America. North America is this place here, and that's why this is a picture of why we call it Turtle Island. But I want to suggest to you that the Holy Land is also here. What's what I want to say? You know, that it is possible that the Holy Land is not in one location, that the Holy Land is where the people who pray to that land are. And in Anishinaabe teachings, there is prophecies. I'm going to talk a little bit about them later, but the idea of sacred places, you know, the very land to which we belong. In our migration story, we talk about the sixth stopping place of the Anishinaabe. We talk about the place where the thunder beings come and rest on their migration from west to east. Other people talk about this here. This is in Dene territory. This is called the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And this is called the place where life begins. That is their holy land. And here is another holy land. This is called Bear's Lodge, you know, which is in what is known as Wyoming. But I like to show you this picture because in Lakota and other people traditions, this is called Bear's Lodge. And it's a long story about these magical being, this bear, and you can see the scratches on the side from when the bear went there to follow some little girls that were up there. Mato Tipila, Mato Tipila. That's what that is. That's a sacred geography is what that is. It's a part of an entire story of a people. And here is, this is what's called Devil's Tower. And, you know, in Wyoming. And I just want to point that out because a lot of places that are sacred are called devil's things. Devil's Lake, Devil's Tower, which is this, you know, and for Anishinaabe and for other Indigenous people, those are places where Manitous are or sacred beings are often. So now this here is another map of our territory. This is a map of, this is a map that is on the back of, it looks like a buffalo hide. And this is called sometimes these are known as winter counts. Oh, I've got a loud dog. Can you get that dog quiet down? I don't know why a dog all crazy. But this here is an Indigenous map. This is, I think, a Lakota map, but it's a winter count map. And it's showing on the back of a buffalo hide, or maybe you put it on the back of an elk hide. And this is a map of place also. And, you know, it looks like it's a map of, I don't know if it's a Cannonball River going in here to the Missouri River or the Great River, you know, but this is another map. And so what am I saying to start with? That Indigenous geography is different than European geography, than GIS geography. But y'all know this because you're geographers. But this is a map. This is my territory in this map. Can you just 1 second here? My dog is loud. Can you get her out? There. I apologize, but hopefully you all were looking at that there. This is a map too. This is an Anishinaabe map. This is called a Red Sky Migration Scroll drawing. This is traditionally would be on a birch bark scroll. And I'm not going to explain all this to you, but you can see it says Atlantic Shore, St. Lawrence, Mackinac Island, Sault Ste. Marie, also known as Bawating, Whitefish Point, Superior, Chequamegon, Madeline Island, Fond du Lac, a map. This is an Indigenous map that ends at Leech Lake. And this is a part of a migration story because the Anishinaaabe, my people, were instructed to follow a shell which appeared in the sky to the place where the food grows upon the water. And so here, this is the map of our migration over a period of years and a long ways from the Atlantic shore to here. And so I just want to share, this is a different kind of map with you, but it is very important because this is the map that instructed a people where they are to go to the place where the food grows on the water. And this is Bawating on the way. This is a picture, I guess it's colorized from like 1901. That's Anishinaabe people, maybe some others, but mostly Anishinaabe out there fishing at Bawating, This is what's known as Sault Ste. Marie. And so I'm saying this because, maps are people's histories, they're people's worldviews, and this is a very alive map for Anishinaabe people. And this here is when you go to the place where the food grows on the water, the wild rice. This is a map of wild rice. This is wild rice. This is my reservation. This is Dawn Goodwin and I up here on the White Earth Reservation. This is called Lower Rice Lake in the northeastern portion of my reservation. It's called Lower Rice Lake. And that, for those of you who are not familiar, which probably is most of you, is wild rice or Manoomin, our most sacred food, wild rice. And that is in a field that is, you look out there and that entire horizon to the horizon is our wild rice. And that's part of that migration map that you saw before, which is different than, I'm sure, maps that most of you have seen. And then there is the map of where I live. This is where I am now. Gawawi-Gamug, Round Lake. This is here in the southeast corner of my reservation, Gawawi-Gamug. Now, my story about climate change and wild rice and Indigenous peoples is really a worldwide story. That's to say that it turns out that colonialism has not left Indigenous people in large numbers. We're about 4% of the world's population, but we are about 75% of the world's biodiversity. That's to say that Indigenous people live in all portions of the world, but from the Arctic to the Amazon, the places of the greatest biodiversity are where Indigenous people live. And so, that whole understanding of biodiversity, cultural diversity, and biodiversity is really important to understanding maps and our world. But it's also in a time of climate change, because in these moments of climate change, our prophecies have talked about this, and we are told that you have a choice between two paths. And they said that one path would be well worn, but it would be scorched. And the other path, they said, would not be well worn, and it would be green. And it'd be our choice upon which path to embark when we got to this time called the time of the seventh fire. And in this time, we are told that everything we see scorching around us would happen. And, even with the most recent Glasgow climate discussion, you got to protect the biodiversity. Even the United Nations is saying that now. I don't remember if they said you had to protect half the world or a third of the world. That's kind of ridiculous, at least half the world plus for the wild things, not just the humans, in order to keep the planet from having a lot more problems. And in order to address issues like climate change, you need forests, you need green things, you need things that aren't buildings. So, these issues of geography and Indigenous peoples intersect with, these very issues of climate change. So, and the state of the world that we're in now, which we would say is this intersection between these two paths, well-worn and scorched and green, well-worn, scorched and green. All right, so here's another map. This is not a very great one. I'm sure that I have friends that could provide me much better, but this is kind of an Indigenous North American map. Very kind of poor, but I give you a map. And then this is what colonialism looks like for Indigenous people. The taking of land from Indigenous peoples through treaty, through force, through war, through just greed. And you can see our reservation is up there in northern Minnesota still. And this is a map of reservations today. And I should have a reserve map on it. I'm going to work to make sure so you can have them in both one. The Canadians, they call it reserves. And in the United States, the colonial term is a reservation. I don't know what y'all know, but that's what I'm saying. So, this is kind of the remaining pieces that we have left. And in these territories, we are fighting hard to protect ourselves. This is some art on a map by Wotan. Wotan, a great Indigenous artist. Really the moment that we are in, gun to my head, all summer, all year. So this is what that looks like on the ground. This is, that map before that I showed you that was a Lakota map. That's probably this Cannonball River picture that you see here. It's the same place as the map I showed before, I think. Having said that, look, this is what happens when they want to put pipelines in these days. They have replumbed North American oil infrastructure to accommodate Canadian multinationals like Enbridge and others. But this is a map that runs oil from the Bakken oil reserves down to Cushing in Oklahoma. And this pipe was originally proposed as the Dakota Access Pipeline. Originally, it was proposed to go north of Bismarck, a city that is 95% white. Wait, did I say that? The Dakota Access Pipeline was originally intended to go north of the city of Bismarck, a city that is 95% white. But because Bismarck nixed that, the Dakota Access Pipeline instead went just north of the Standing Rock Reservation. And so this is how maps become agents, a part of the tools of oppression. So many examples of that. And this is what it looks like on the ground, in the time when we are trying to protect our water, in the time when we are trying to protect life forms, in the time when we are life, you see that we are face to face with these forces of death. This is what $38 million worth of military repression looks like when it comes to bear on your homelands as you protect your water, as you are a water protector. And, we're all out there fighting for the water out there, doing our best, but, they succeeded in getting that pipeline in, and then they came here, they being Enbridge, Canadian multinational, Canadian pipeline company that's preoccupied with moving dirty tar sands oil from the Canadian territory to the United States. 75% of all tar sands, 75% of all tar sands oil that comes into this country, the dirtiest oil in the world, comes through Enbridge. So here's our sacred wild rice map. In Minnesota, you can see the prevalence, and it's the only place in the world it grows, and a lot of it grows right there in Minnesota. And then you could see through the heart of our territory, the Enbridge map. And this is what we fought. And, we fought this for our wild rice. Our people are here because of our wild rice. And so when Enbridge announced this pipeline, we began our resistance. And so for 8 years, since 2013, but really 2016, 5 years on the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline, we fought to protect this land. And in 2021, in the midst of the pandemic, this pipeline was shoved down our throats, resulting in so much damage to our land and our people. The Enbridge Corporation fracked 28 of our rivers. The Enbridge Corporation stole 5 billion gallons of water in the deepest drought that our territory has known in my lifetime. And the Enbridge Corporation pierced 3 aquifers, and the Enbridge Corporation arrested us all. This is what the Enbridge map looks like. And I just want to say that if you took this map and you replaced This map is the same map as I showed you before of the Anishinaaabe scrolls. It is the same territory that is covered. And this is how Enbridge comes to northern Wisconsin now. This is called Enbridge 5.0, as they try to get across northern Wisconsin. And this tribe here, Bad River, has fought them for years and has said that Enbridge, which has that red line across the reservation, that section of pipeline has not had an easement or been operating legally, I believe, for 5 years. And so they tribe, Bad River First Nation, Anishinaabe people, has issued an eviction to Enbridge and has asked that Enbridge, demanded Enbridge remove their pipe. And so now Enbridge has got this other like loop around the bottom where Enbridge wants to go around the reservation. And they're fighting really bad on this. And it's going to be a tough scene over there in Wisconsin, but we're ready for it. I just want to say that I myself was faced many charges over there. This is the map of our migration story. And I just want to say the map of my migration and then the map of Enbridge. Wait, just one more time. So you got this. This is Enbridge going against the route of migration, bringing the oil into our territory. And there is our same map, which is basically our territory, our migration story. So when you're protecting your wild rice, your most sacred food, and when you're protecting your most sacred territory from Enbridge, you end up with a lot of people standing there, and 1,000 people got arrested. 1,000 people got arrested. Here I am. I was charged by video for this after, but this is actually one of my arrests, and those are some of my grandchildren. And I say this to you because I am, in as much as rivers have rights, this is the Shell River, and I'm the guardian at Litem of the Shell River, and I'm about to get arrested protecting the Shell River. This is right before they arrested me, and then they did. So this is kind of the last section, but the same artist who did the piece of the gun to the Indian person's head is here. His piece is a water protector. And that's what I am, a water protector. This is art by Votan, and this is in downtown Duluth. This Indian woman is not disappearing, and she's not missing and murdered. She's about 30 feet wide and 40 feet tall. And so we know where she is. This moment we have is really this moment where we have this opportunity to deconstruct, to claim back the names, where once it was called Ayers Rock, it's called Uluru. Where once it was called Mount McKinley, it's called Mount Denali. Where it was called Queen Charlotte Islands, it's known as Haida Gwaii. Let us take back the names as we take back the land. This is, the calendar to manifest destiny. And this is the beautiful, beautiful 8th fire. This is the work that is ahead of us to make something that is beautiful. Praying hard and making something that is beautiful. And in the heart of that, there is redoing Indigenous geography. And some of that involves land back, because I heard it said to me a long time ago, the only compensation for land is land. You take land, you get back land. And so this movement, land back movement, I worked on this most of my life, and it continues and it grows. This is a picture of when President Trump decided to celebrate the 4th of July in the year 2000 in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And this is who met him in the Black Hills. Trump, Mount Rushmore, white supremacy. This is land back. So these maps that I'm showing, this discussion that I'm having about land taking and the appropriation of land and the theft, land and water by multinational corporations, this is a solution. There's land acknowledgements, and then there's land back. That's even better. So let us start somewhere and some of this land is returning. This is, and at the same time, some of these, the recognition of land is returning even more dramatically. So this is, of course, Evo Morales, the president, or the former president until the lithium coup of Brazil, of Bolivia, excuse me. And two countries, the country of Ecuador, followed by the country of Bolivia, declared the rights of nature, or the rights of Pachamama, in 2008. That would be when Ecuador declared the rights of Mother Earth and the Pachamama, rights of Mother Earth, followed by 2010, Bolivia declaring the rights of Mother Earth. And that means the right to regenerate, the right to be free of contamination, the right to be free of genetic engineering, the right to clean water, the rights of Mother Earth. Now, it turns out that Indigenous leadership seems more in tune with the idea that the land and the water has life, not just a name. It is not just something on a map. And Evo Morales, really brought that to an international arena. And his work, was followed by many other nations, including my tribe, the White Earth tribe, which in 2019 declared the rights of wild rice. The rights of wild rice to continue without genetic contamination, to be free, to continue to reproduce and to flourish. In 2019, in 2018, the rights of nature was also declared by the Ho-Chunk Nation. In 2018, the rights of wild rice were recognized, or 2019, by the White Earth Nation. And in 2020, Nez Perce Nation and the Yurok tribe here recognized this is actually the rights to the river in New Zealand. That was the first rights that existed. This is the right to in 2017, to the Wanagui River in Aotearoa. And these are the guardians of that river in New Zealand. Aotearoa is called New Zealand. And this is the guardians of that river. And this is the first time that a river was given rights under national law, Aotearoa or New Zealand. That is followed by, in 2021, the Yurok tribe declared the rights of the Klamath River. And here are some of the caretakers of the river. And here is the river, or the Klamath River Basin, which has been under a lot of federal litigation for the water and who has the rights to the water. And the Supreme Court has ruled that the river has its rights to the water, and the dams, like the Iron Gate Dam, are on their way down. Similarly, the Nez Perce tribe acknowledged the rights of the Snake River. And more recently, in Seattle, in the town of Seattle, in the city of Seattle, the Salish people there have recognized the rights of the Chinook salmon, to continue to exist. But, it is about a long transition from the laws of colonization to the laws that recognize the rights of Mother Earth over the rights of corporations. And along with that, you see the importance of the return of land with those rights. This is, of course, the Bears Ear National Monument, enacted or returned to it'd be the first, I think it's a 5-nation intertribal park in what is known as Southern Utah. Then under the Trump administration, it was squashed, but it is back with the Biden administration. So what am I saying? Land back, rights of nature, take care of things and return things that don't belong to us, don't belong to you. And then in December of 2021, Ecuador Ecuador's constitutional court upheld the rights of nature, the rights of Pachamama that they had recognized a decade before. And in a court decision on December, I think it was 3rd of 2021, the Ecuadorian Constitutional Court ruled that mining in a protected region of the Ecuadorian rainforest violates the rights of nature, in a landmark decision interpreting the country's constitutional provisions that grants rights and confer protections to ecosystems. The decision means that Ecuador's government will have to revoke mining permits granted to INAME, Ecuador State Mining Corporation, and its Canadian partner, Cornerstone Capital Resources, for exploratory operations within the Los Cedros protected area in Ecuador's northwest region. 7 justices voted in favor of the ruling and 2 abstained. The risk in this case is not necessarily related to human beings, but to the extinction of species, the destruction of ecosystems, or the permanent alteration of natural cycles. That is what the court and the justice wrote. So land-based thinking, maps, and legal systems are essential tenets of sustainability and reflect an Indigenous geography. And I'm happy to share that with you. I'm happy to share that story with you, or these stories of land and people and geography, and to just have my gratitude for being able to join you today. Miigwech, and I'm happy to open for some questions.
Thank you so much for this, inspiring, wide-ranging, and very, very geographical talk. I would like to invite audience members to type your questions in the Q&A, and I will moderate them. There's one right now. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think and ask one question first, and then I'll start to read the audience one. So in the last panel, we were talking also about engaged scholarship, engaged geographical scholarship, and the fact that sometimes what's valued in academia isn't necessarily what's needed by communities, for example. And so, this audience is, for better or worse, mostly undergraduate and graduate students and academics of various types. There's some community members, some professional geographers, but mostly we're academics. And so, I was wondering if you have any thoughts you can share with us as a long time activist. What do you wish geographers, whether students or faculty or others, were doing right now to do better to support the work of communities for climate justice, especially for those of us who are not Indigenous, but who care about climate justice? Like, what would you like to see us doing?
We need all kinds of mapping help. I'm looking at maps all the time. I really appreciate your discipline. A guy comes in here, Huber, a logging company, or they want to put a mill in, an oriented strand board mill. And they don't have any map. You need a map of forest cover. And then you need to see where the roads are. And then you need to see like the impact of their mill in a circle, because they want to get, what I'm saying? This is like maps teach. And maps explain a story. I can talk endlessly, but if you see it on a map, you're like, oh my God. So we need maps that meet with movement people. Indigenous peoples need maps, and the maps have been used to steal from us for my whole life. And now we want maps to tell our story, and we want to protect the things that we're supposed to protect with our maps.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for the question. It was a great question.
Let me ask, so John Hayes says, incredible presentation. Can you talk more about being a guardian of a river? You mentioned being one, kind of can you just elaborate more on that?
Yeah, okay, so inspired by the Wanagui River in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and others where, the river, that has iwi, that has people, that has guardians for it. Someone has to be able to speak for the river in a legal and a policy framework, because the river's voice is us. And so the guardian ad litem, the idea is that in these policy arenas, you as a, you must in fact, you're appointed to be the one, like a guardian for a child, And so this summer, facing Enbridge, the Shell River was crossed 5 times by Enbridge. I tried so hard. I stood there, I camped for 5 months on the Shell River. I attempted, and I was arrested. I have charges in 3 counties, all for Enbridge, And someone needs to stand up for the rivers, and so my tribe appointed me the guardian for the river, and I attempted to intervene in the legal system as a guardian for the river, and they kicked me out. They said the river had no standing. And then my tribe filed suit on the rights of wild rice against the Department of Natural Resources last August in tribal court, saying that the state of Minnesota had grossly mismanaged and impacted our sacred wild rice. Our tribe filed suit in tribal court with already the legal understanding that the wild rice has a right. That court decision, the state of Minnesota Department of Natural Resources charged in tribal court, appealed it to federal court, and the federal court sent it back to tribal court. So, these questions of who has the rights and which legal system should prevail are political questions, and legal systems are functions of society. Legal systems like that at one point had legalized slavery are not the same legal system that we live in now. And so what we got to do is change the legal systems. I'm sorry, it was kind of a long answer to a question, but thank you for your question, John.
So that's actually very much related to the next question, which I think you've already answered part of, but let me read it. So Melanie McDermott asks, I'd love to hear more about the rights of wild rice. And do you see tensions involved in basing social justice movements on the notion of rights, which has meaning in a liberal, colonial, and oppressive justice system? I'm thinking both strategically in terms of court cases and ethically. Arguably, rights have meaning because some are denied them, certain people, species, or so forth. Again, I think you've partly answered it, but if you have more to say.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that I think it's a rights-based society, and I think that being a rights-based society is not actually right. That sounds funny, yeah? Like, I think we should be a responsibility-based society. We all talk about our right to this, our right to that, right, but nobody wants any responsibility. We just throw garbage out the window. But it's my right because I have a personal private right to do. You know what I'm saying? So that whole anthropocentric, super self-absorbed rights thing, is very American, very Canadian, very North American, right? My right, my right, my right, my right. Oh my gosh. But, the other thing is like, what about my responsibility? However, in a legal sense, I do have a right. I have a treaty right to wild rice. I have a right to continue, to live according to my legal rights as an Anishinaabe person. So, a lot of our legal cases are based on those rights. But my rights are only measured by my responsibilities. I only take rights based on my ability to take responsibility. Yeah, I saw this other question was very interesting too. I saw here, Megan.
Great. Well, I'll read it for those who aren't looking at it. So some people are probably very alarmed about land back, but could there be a conversation that would get concrete about this proposal that might be steps to work with and help people accept this idea? Where should we start? Should people negotiate regionally, locally with the reservations in their state? Do you think that Indigenous management of public land is a useful start?
Such a great question. Okay. Megan, the easy thing is you start with public lands. Like, for instance, they're returning the National Bison Range to the Salish and Kootenai tribe. Why are they doing that? Oh, that's because the Bison Range, the people who saved the bison were those guys, the Salish and Kootenai. All the rest of them were wiped out by the Americans, and the last bison was here on this one reservation in Montana. And then the United States came and carved out a bison range out of the middle of their reservation and said, oh, we got the bison range. Look at us, we're saving the bison. So anyway, under this administration, after many years, that land is getting returned, right, to the people. Their first national park, native national park, I think Frog Bay just went in up there on Lake Superior. And so the Biden administration is actually returning some of those public lands, but that is across the board. I mean, you see like the city of Wairika or Eureka is just returned Indian Island to the people it killed. It killed like 300 Indian people there 150 years ago, just wiped them all out. Brutal, brutal. Here about 4 years ago, city council of the town of Eureka returned that land to the tribe, So I think you're seeing that with larger amounts of, land back, and I could just go down the list. What about those, have you seen the land grant institution list? Oh, that's a good one. Cornell, the 72, the majority of the land grant institutions lands was taken from us. So, return some of those research places. Boy Scouts, I've been after the Boy Scout camp. I got a 2,400 acre Boy Scout camp just north of me. I was like, you're all going to court anyway. You're all going to jail. Why don't you just give the land back to the reservation? So plenty of places to start, and I think it's time to just put on your big girl panties and let's just do this. I mean, I'm saying that because someone is a little bit worried about it. I was like, jeepers, it's only been 200 years, let's just start. And you start on some of the public lands, and then so many really cool people are returning land. They're just like, I've been hoarding this land in my family. I'm just going to turn it over as a land trust. So we just purchased about 1,000 acres of land up here. Donors helped us purchase land back from multinational corporations like Enbridge. I want my land back. That's the way you fix it. Thanks for your question, though.
Great. I don't see any other questions right now. So let me ask another question that's inspired by a set of panels I listened to today. So there were some sessions on the idea of climate adaptation as invisible labor, especially in an international development context. But a lot of adaptation tends to be framed as something that the community has to do to contribute its part to the climate adaptation benefits that it's getting. And so, there's a critique that says people should be compensated for their adaptation labor or their mitigation labor, maybe paid a wage for this community work. And I was just wondering if, again, this is mostly happening in the international development context. Is this a conversation, that's relevant for Native tribes in the US? Do you have any thoughts about?
That's an interesting question. I mean, on one hand, we didn't make the mess, did we? At no point did I think that Indigenous people made this giant mess that we're living in. That would be, Exxon, Mobil, Enbridge, Royal Bank of Canada financing it, so that's who made the big mess, right? And we have to mitigate, we have to figure out how to adapt to survive, right? They should pay for fixing stuff. They should pay for helping us with infrastructure like sewers and water systems that aren't going to collapse, and a grid that's not going to break up, with everything. We need solar, we need all kind of community energy, we need local foods. That's what you got to do. And some of that infrastructure should be financed by the very guys who made the mess, and they should take a lot more responsibility for fixing things or making it at least possible for us to survive. On the other hand, and sure, they should pay. I mean, I'm all ready for Enbridge, $2 billion to take out line 3, $2 billion. The old line 3 that they don't need, it's all busted up. $2 billion. That's all labor. That's all labor costs. So, $50 an hour, let's go. So certainly compensation. On the other hand, what I want to say is, does everybody need to be compensated for living? I mean, everybody's like, well, what's my next job? And how am I going to get paid to fix this or fix that? And I was like, why don't we just fix things? I'm going to grow a bunch of hemp. I'm going to grow a whole bunch of hemp, and y'all could finance. I mean, if you want to offset your carbon footprint, I was trying to figure out if my hemp even offset my carbon footprint. I'm trying to go 100 acres of hemp. Does that offset my carbon footprint? I don't know. What I'm saying is like, y'all can finance offsetting carbon footprints with things like that, or what I'm saying, finance all the hemp out there. But at the same time, I feel like that we all got to just work together to make some make sure that we got seeds we can eat, food we can grow, and that the things go well for our communities. That's what the prophet said, take a path,
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of reparations, as a form of climate adaptation is for climate adaptation is very powerful. And I guess the question was sort of like, should it be just individual wage labor, or should it be reparation to a community, right, or a nation as a whole, right? Anyway, those were just some thoughts I had.
There's many ways to do it, and just get started. That's one of the downfalls of academics. You spend a lot of time splitting hairs.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I mean, it's like a little tiresome for those of us who are out here getting arrested. It's like, come on, let's do something cool.
Mm-hmm. So there is a note, not a question, that there is a session on Tuesday about the land grab university as a way of talking about land grants universities which have taken land. So that is under consideration as well. I guess another question I have is, I've always really appreciated your extensive and astute analysis on the current moment. And you've mentioned the Biden administration. So I was just wondering if you could, what do you see like right now? We're kind of we're not through COVID. Who knows if we'll ever be through COVID, but the crisis is at a certain point. Then we've got Ukraine and gas prices and just, are there particular openings or dangers you see just like right now and what's happening in the world?
Well, I really like what Arundhati Roy says when she talks about pandemic as portal. And she said, in the history of the world, pandemics have always forced societies to change. This one is no different. She says it's a portal between one world and the next. Right. And she asks how we're going to walk through the portal. You're going to take your, avarice and your hatred and your dirty rivers and your data banks, or you're going to walk through clean. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for social transformation. And I think it is all around us. I think that the pandemic kind of was like one more, hey, you guys don't know what you're doing kind of moment. I mean, I don't want to say white guys are so self-absorbed and think they know everything, but for crying out loud, oh, we got this. You do not got this. It's kind of like, you really think it's smart to pick a fight with Mother Earth? You think you're going to win? No, don't pick it. It's not nice to pick a fight with Mother Nature. You aren't going to win. So from my perspective, like, there's all that shakeup. There's the economic shakeup that is going to just continue to rattle and rattle and rattle. And that's continuing and going big time, right? And then there's, environmental crises of such, biblical proportions, catastrophes of biblical proportions. And then, and all of that, sometimes I used to get, jeepers, this last year, I was like, I could get all freaked out about it, but you know what? My ancestors talked about this so often. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what they're talking about, the time when you won't get food in the store. That's what my father used to say. There's going to be a time when there's no food in the store. Do y'all just see that? We just saw that. So that's your opportunity for shaking it up and moving it along. That's what I feel like. And that's really this moment. And then in the midst of it, massive surging of social movements. I mean, in my life, do you think that I'd expect to see 40 Columbus statues fall in a year? No way. I'm saying it's moving, keep moving. So thanks for the question.
So Bruce Bosek has, he says, thank you for this excellent opportunity to hear you. This is more of a statement than a question. One of the things I find compelling and fascinating is that wild rice requires rivers and lakes that have a particular personality. The water needs to move, but not too fast. The water needs to be clean and in the right temperature range. Personality implies relationship. Relationships require reciprocity and trust. So, yeah. I don't know if you have any comments.
I mean, we, as people know, Indigenous land stewardship. I mean, management is such a white man word. Let's just call it, relationship to place and knowing how to, like, you get these like weirs, or what should you call it, like little hand dams that people use in the lakes to keep the water levels right. We're all busy taking care of our giant garden of Turtle Island, and So you see that kind of, and then you see it in this Rights of Wild Rice. You see how the practice of reaffirming relationship to place by taking care of the place and the water is then reaffirmed in a jurisprudence system. I think that that's really, to me, essential what Indigenous thinking and Indigenous jurisprudence and Indigenous geography looks like today.
Thanks. Kimberly Thomas says, many thanks for this excellent discussion. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about the unfamiliar path as told by the prophecy. How does your nation envision, or what the second path, what actions or practices besides land back does this entail?
Well, on one hand, it's not an unknown path because it's really on our original instructions. I was at this hearing and I think it was on redistricting, vote redistricting, right? And I was listening to all these older white guys get up and they were like talking about how they needed it redistricted. And they were talking about, the economy here. They're talking about Minnesota. It's one of them said energy and logging and agriculture. He said mining, agriculture, and logging. I said, it is not. I got up, I said, where do you live? I said, this is a wild rice and a water and a maple sugar economy. That's the economy, that's the green path, is you keep your biodiversity and you can still eat. You could, if you could drink your water, that's the green path. That's the green path. It's not like some brand new thing that came from Oz. It's starting first with what is a sustainable practice, and then it's things like building soil. I mean, everybody who's on this call as a geographer knows without topsoil, you don't got nothing, right? And that's what we got to do. We got to make soil. We got to grow back soil. We got to cut our consumption from being the stupid pigs that we are, basically, where we consume a third of the world's wealth or whatever it is for no apparent reason, except that we feel entitled to it. We need to be the kind of people that consume less. Like maybe we just Zoom sometimes. I mean, I love going places, but I was like, this is great. You could still talk to people and I didn't have to like fly across the country, exhausting myself and my family. So think about these things. Even the World Wide Web is in the prophecies. That interested me when I was thinking about it. They said the web that appears in the sky, right? See what I'm saying? It's like, no, just know what's old and is good, and then what's new that's helpful. Like there's some technology that's like super helpful. I mean, there's different, and I just feel like that what you need at this point is an intersection of efficient technologies, reduced energy consumption, things like a train. Like, why would you drive your combustion engine when you could just get on a train? Right? That's a technology that's appropriate. It's much more appropriate than Elon Musk's, space stuff. Like, why do those guys all want to go to space? They were crazy. Anyway, don't let me get editorializing about what I think about the rich people. Not much.
Well, thank you.
Take it with you, baby.
Thank you for saying that. We're really glad you're able to zoom in as well. There's a question from Daniel Bean saying, regarding your advice to provide mapping in the service of First Nations, I wonder if you can speak about the existing and historical tension between the academy and tribes. If I approach a tribe as a researcher, I still represent the university. And despite my best intentions, I'm a representative of a system and university with a sometimes nasty history. How can I balance that tension appropriately and respectfully?
Well, figure out how many bags you want to carry. I mean, I know exactly. I work with all kind of university guys, and you got to be able to put the community ahead of the university. I mean, I work with the University of Minnesota on hemp, and I was talking to one of these guys. I got hemp seeds. I was like, mine, not yours. I mean, those are the things. The people who are the scholars and the academics in these universities have every right and responsibility to transform the institutions from being the, colonial bastions of theft that they have been, from land grab to, the entire collection of cultural wealth of my reservation sitting over there at the, Peabody Research Institute in Andover, Mass, or at Harvard University. So time to like rematriate and have, I mean, but and the thing is that I've been in school, I spent a lot of time in school, but my point is that scholars are super relevant if they allow themselves to be relevant. So let's be relevant. I mean, all summer fighting Enbridge, trying to get a malacologist out here. It was the most political thing, a malacologist. That's a guy who studies mussels, right? But all of that, it's like your knowledge is so political in these battles. So stand on the side of right. Stand on the side of right with all your knowledge and help the people, like little people like me.
I did not know what a malacologist was, but this is related to another question by Daniel Block. Could you talk a little bit more about how the pipeline affected the wild rice areas around northern Minnesota? Having spent some time up there, I was wondering what effects there are already on the rivers in the area.
Well, by and large, I mean, it blasted through, and so everything in its way disrupted. Places where they fracked the river disrupted, burned. That's what Enbridge does, burns your river. It's just like a scorched earth policy to the max. Let's just be it, just don't pretend like I'm going to feel okay about it. I got a lot of trauma about it, and I'm arrested. I said that a few times, and I should get a medal. They should drop my charges and I should get a medal, and all of us. But my point is that the larger problems of wild rice really have to do with oil in your water. That's a big one. We didn't get any oil in yet, but we have this really big survey. We're trying to see what's going on with the water because of the giant mess they made. And so we pay $50,000, the tribes, to figure out with some kind of super technology, I don't know what they got. But then in addition to that, the problem is climate change. Because what climate change does is it raises heck with your wild rice bed in a torrential storm and floods out your rice and drowns it, or maybe just dries it out. And this summer, it was so dry that the rice was there, but you couldn't get to it. You had I got a picture of a guy walking out there with looked like boats on his feet. He was walking out there with think snowshoes without holes in them, right? That's what it's like. Hard to get your rice in a time of climate disaster. We're lucky we got it, but it was hard work this year.
I want to be mindful of the time. So let me just read the last questions which are here, and Winona, if you want to take any of them.
Here, let me see.
That's fine. I can also just curate them here out loud. So one that hasn't been answered is, do you see any change on the ground now that Deb Haaland is Secretary of the Interior? Another is, what do you think about tourism as an economic engine, e.g. in the boundary waters? And lastly, thank you for this talk. I'm native from Siberia. My greetings to all Indigenous communities of America. Do you think co-production of knowledge makes sense, or what do you think? So.
Oh, wow, such really great questions. That's I like talking to people like y'all. Super interesting. Okay, so I think that co-production, working together to tell your story is a good idea. I'm not sure if I know what co-production of knowledge is, but I think that we need to be able to tell our story. The other guys have told their story pretty well. And so I think that the way to make sure that Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous narrative is out there, it needs to be promoted, and we need to say it, and other folks need to say, listen to this. This is a way of thinking that we want to, engage in. And it needs to be there. I mean, we're challenging all of these forest management plans, which are totally made up, they have no, and it's just the worst greed. But this is not a newsflash, just the worst greed, and so I think that the more that Indigenous knowledge, is brought out in all scientific arenas, is so important. And then the other question seemed like I had a good question. Deb Haaland and tourism. Okay, so look, I love Deb Haaland. The thing that makes me really upset though is this is what it is. Could be any administration. They get Native people of color in there, and then they want them to act in their own paradigm, like the paradigm of the white people or Wendigo capitalism, So Deb Haaland did not support Line 3. I know that. but she could not do anything. I mean, she didn't actually have like in her legal thing, she, there's maybe something she could do, but they just like they get cool Indigenous people in there and then they try to hamstring them so they can't do something. So let Deb go. She got Bear's ears back. We want Deb to roll. She's like the kind of Indigenous person we need. And then there's this new guy named Chuck Sams, who's head of the National Park Service. That's going to be awesome. I'm hoping to see, because there's so many parks that are carved out of Indian reservations, or even here, we have the Tamarack National Wildlife Refuge. That should be 2,300 acres is on my reservation, 2,200 acres off. I want the 2,300 acres back on tribal management. We want the funds to do it too. Biden give us the money to manage it, and then in that, tourism, yeah, Indigenous tourism, not the kind of tourism that's extractive tourism. What we need is Indigenous tourism where people can learn to live lightly, or, obviously quite a few people could learn how to live better by hanging out with Indigenous people, and so I think that there is good potential, and I want to see that the people who are in charge of going to the sacred places, that's probably what this fellow is talking about, like the boundary waters, that you should be able to have native guides. It's the same thing like Bear's Ear. I wouldn't go Bear's Ears. I don't really know a bunch about it, but if you have somebody who really tells you what is going on there, much better than Smokey the Bear guy telling you what's going on, But, such good questions. And now, y'all, if you're interested, I'm at honorearth.org. And you guys are more than, I suppose I spelled it wrong. I have a sticky E. But, you all are welcome to ask more questions as you like. And geographers, we love you. Did I say that already? I love geographers. I mean, I do. I just like looking at maps and telling stories that are based on land. I might tell my story a little different, but that's a lot better than, it's a good way to tell a story. So.
Well, Winona, I want to thank you for your energy and your such inspirational stories for us to learn from. And I hope that we can inspire new collaborations or continue to work together. So on behalf of AAG, I again really want to thank you so much for this lecture. And also thank you so much to the audience, and more sessions to come on, land grant or land grab universities and climate justice in the days to come. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.